Ready to see the future through the lens of the past? Welcome to Endtime Prophecy Stories. Here we dive deep into ancient mysteries and uncover what lies ahead in a world filled with uncertainty. But we can't do it without you. If you want to stay prepared and never miss a revelation, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if you find value in these stories, give this video a like. It helps us reach more truth seekers just like you. Now let's open the seal on today's story. Unstable: the systematic dismantling of Western democracy. Chapter 1: The Shadow of the General. The air in the Oval Office was stagnant, heavy with the scent of old polish and unseen tension. President Jackson Sterling sat behind the resolute desk, his eyes darting frantically between 3 different teleprompters that were currently switched off. He was a man unraveling. Once a charismatic populist, his mental faculties were now visibly eroding, a fact carefully hidden from the public, but blatantly obvious to the man standing in the shadows of the room. Alberto Ricci, the Jesuit general, known to the initiated simply as the Black Pope, watched Sterling with the cold detachment of a butcher eyeing a steer. Ricci wore a simple black cassock, a stark contrast to the opulence of the White House. "They are whispering, Alberto," Sterling muttered, his hands trembling as he reached for a glass of water. "The cabinet. They say I'm losing the thread. They want to invoke the 25th. Ricci stepped forward, his movement silent. "Let them whisper, Mr. President. Chaos is a ladder, and we are merely greasing the rungs. Your cabinet is exactly what we need it to be: inexperienced, loyal, and utterly blind to the architecture of history." Ricci's plan was centuries in the making. The time of the end, which began in 1844, was reaching its crescendo. The world was awash in materialism and secular humanism, ripe for the plucking. But to install the final system, the reset, the current hegemon of the Western Hemisphere had to fall. Democracy had to be exposed as a failure to pave the way for a theocratic autocracy. "What is the directive?" Sterling asked, his voice weak. "Destabilization," Ricci said softly. "You will sign the executive order authorizing the strike on the Eastern Coalition. No congressional approval, no strategic foresight, just impulse." Sterling blinked, the fog in his mind clearing just enough to feel fear. "That will start a war." "It will start rumors of war," Ricci corrected, "and it will break the faith the people have in this system. Do it." Chapter 2: The Perthelite Deception. In a glass-walled skyscraper that pierced the smog of Silicon Valley, Julian Thorne stood looking out over the flat expanse of the bay. Thorne was the CEO of Perthelite Industries, the most powerful tech conglomerate on the plain. To the public, he was a visionary. To Ricci, he was the false prophet. The room hummed with the sound of server cooling fans, the heartbeat of the AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, known as Baal Z. "Status report," Thorne said to the empty room. The AGI's voice, smooth and synthetic, filled the air. "The algorithm is successfully suppressing 94% of geocentric truth queries. The heliocentric model remains the dominant cognitive framework. The gravity simulation is holding." Thorne smiled. The greatest deception of the beast system was not political, it was cosmological. By convincing the masses they lived on a spinning ball in an infinite vacuum, they had erased the intuitive knowledge of the Creator. If people knew they lived on a stationary plane enclosed by a firmament dome, they would know God was watching. They would know the judgment was real. "Good," Thorne said. "Ramp up the gravity educational protocols. We must reinforce the idea that an invisible force glues them to a ball, rather than the simple laws of density and buoyancy. If they understand density, they understand the lie." His phone buzzed. A text from Ricci. "The president has moved. Initiate the social contagions." Thorn turned to the massive screen displaying a map of the world, not the Mercator projection, but the true azimuthal equidistant map. "Time to confuse the languages," Thorn whispered. Chapter 3. The Blunder. The strike was a catastrophe. President Sterling's cabinet, a collection of cronies and inexperienced ideologues, had ordered a drone bombardment on a sovereign nation based on faulty intelligence provided by Ritchie's agents. They hit a cultural heritage site, killing civilians and a high-ranking foreign diplomat. The backlash was instantaneous. In the Situation Room, the atmosphere was panic. "We have condemnations from every nation," the Secretary of State stammered, sweating through his suit. "Sanctions are coming. The markets are crashing." Sterling sat catatonic at the head of the table. He looked at his hands, muttering about spilled wine. Miles away, in a dimly lit apartment in D.C., Thomas Jensen watched the news with a knot in his stomach. Thomas was a data archivist for the Library of Congress, a man who had spent 15 years studying ancient manuscripts and, more recently, biblical prophecy. He was a former Seventh-day Adventist who had left the denomination when he realized the leadership had fallen into the Laodicean lullaby, asleep and compliant. "Matthew 24:6, Thomas whispered to the empty room, "and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars." He pulled up a secure browser, bypassing the Perthelite filters he had learned to navigate. He looked at the data streams. This wasn't just incompetence. The erratic movements of the president, the simultaneous collapse of diplomatic channels, it was a demolition job. They were breaking the West on purpose. Chapter 4. The King of the South. The chaotic response to the war crimes empowered the King of the South, the spiritual embodiment of atheism and secularism. In the streets of New York, Paris, and London, riots broke out. The masses, disillusioned by the corruption of the Christian nations, turned violently against all forms of religion. "God is dead," they chanted, burning effigies outside cathedrals. Ritchie watched the footage from his private quarters in Rome. It was perfect. To bring about the final worship of the beast, he first had to destroy the false sense of security in the current order. He needed atheism to push the world to the brink of annihilation so that he could offer a spiritual solution. He picked up a secure line to Julian Thorne. "The King of the South is pushing, just as Daniel predicted in chapter 11. The dialectic is in motion." "The churches?" Thorne asked. "Asleep," Ritchie replied. "They are preaching prosperity and peace while the sword hangs over their necks. They have drunk the wine of Babylon. They do not know the time of their visitation." Chapter 5. The Laodicean Slumber. Thomas Jensen stood in the back of a megachurch, the bass of the worship band thumping against his chest. The pastor, a man with a gleaming smile and a suit worth more than Elias's car, was preaching a sermon on manifesting your destiny. Thomas couldn't take it anymore. He walked to the front, ignoring the ushers. "The time is at hand," Thomas shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "The president is a puppet. The war is a distraction. Do you not see the signs? The abomination is setting up. We are living in the toes of the image." The music stopped. The congregation looked at him with a mix of pity and annoyance. "Brother," the pastor said condescendingly, "we are in a season of grace. God is doing a new thing. Don't spread fear." "It's not fear, it's warning." Thomas held up his Bible. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. They are hiding the firmament from you. They are hiding the law of God. The reset is a trap." Security guards grabbed Thomas by the arms. As they dragged him out, he saw the glazed eyes of the people. They were spiritually drugged, victims of 2 Timothy 4:3, having itching ears, turning away from the truth. They believed the lie of the globe and the lie of the secret rapture. They would not be ready. Chapter 6. Nation Against Nation. With the Western governments paralyzed by Sterling's insanity and the external war, the Jesuit general played his next card, internal division. Thorne's AGI, Ball Z, released a torrent of deepfake videos and algorithmic biases designed to ignite racial tensions. It was Matthew 24:7 fulfilled. For nation shall rise against nation. The Greek word used was ethnos, ethnicity against ethnicity. Cities turned into war zones. Neighbors who had lived side by side for decades were suddenly enemies, radicalized by a digital psyop they didn't understand. Thomas, now hiding in a safe house with a small group of awake believers, watched the smoke rise over the city skyline. "This is the distraction," Thomas told the group. He spread a map on the table, a flat Earth map. "While we fight each other, they are moving assets to the enclaves. They are preparing for the pestilence." "How do we stop it?" a young woman named Martha asked. "We don't," Thomas said, his voice somber. "Prophecy must be fulfilled. We don't stop the storm, we survive it to warn others. We must help seal the 144,000. We have to get the truth out about the lunar Sabbath and the Creator before the net closes." Chapter 7. The Pestilence and Pharmakeia. The destabilization was total. The government had ceased to function effectively. Then, the sickness came. It wasn't a natural virus. It was a bioweapon released from drone canisters in high-density population centers. It caused panic unlike anything seen before. Julian Thorne appeared on every screen worldwide. "Perthelite Industries has the solution," he announced. "A new health protocol, a mandatory genetic update." It was the Pharmakeia deception of Revelation 18:23. The medicine was a tool of control, designed to interface with the AGI and weaken the frontal lobe, the center of judgment and spirituality. "Do not take it," Thomas broadcasted via ham radio, the only medium left uncensored. "It is the precursor. It disconnects you from the Creator. Trust in your immune system. Trust in God's design. The body is the temple." But fear was a powerful motivator. Millions lined up, desperate for safety, trading their liberty and their biology for a promise of peace from the very men who had engineered the plague. Chapter 8. The Withering of the Fields. Following the pestilence came the famine. The war crimes committed in Chapter 3 had shattered trade routes. The King of the South nations placed embargoes on the West. Grocery store shelves stood empty. The price of wheat skyrocketed. The weight of the situation pressed down on everyone. Ricci stood in a high-tech command center deep beneath the Vatican. "The population is desperate. They are hungry, sick, and terrified. They are ready for the Savior." "Is the false Christ ready?" an aide asked. "Not yet," Ricci said. "First, they must be broken completely. We must reduce the numbers. The resources of the plane are abundant, but we must convince them of scarcity. We must convince them that there are too many eaters for the globe to sustain." They initiated the scorched earth policy. Satellites, which were actually high-altitude balloons circling under the firmament, beamed directed energy weapons down on the Midwestern breadbasket, burning the crops. The news blamed it on climate change. Chapter 9. The Ceiling. In the mountains, away from the burning cities, Thomas and his group had grown. They were a ragtag mix of former atheists, disillusioned evangelicals, and truth seekers. They spent their days studying Daniel and Revelation. They understood that the papacy was the beast, that the timeline of 1844 had ushered in the judgment hour. They kept the seventh-day lunar Sabbath, rejecting the Sunday law that was beginning to be whispered about in the halls of the new provisional government. "They are about to close the door," Thomas said, looking at the star circling Polaris through a telescope. "After this chaos, the 144,000 will be sealed. This is just the beginning. A decision to follow the Bible truth against the current of the whole world will be presented and we will carry that message." Martha looked through the telescope. "It's beautiful. The firmament. It proves we are special, that we aren't just specks of dust." "That's why they hide it," Thomas said. "If you know you are enclosed, you know you are protected. But you are also accountable." Down in the valley, the black SUVs of Perthelite Industries were patrolling. The hunt for dissidents had begun. Chapter 10. The Beginning of Sorrows. The culmination had arrived. President Sterling had been removed, found dead in his office from a stroke. A provisional council, led by the Jesuit general, though he stayed in the shadows, and Julian Thorne took control. They announced the Great Reset. To save the planet, Thorne declared to a worldwide audience, we must reduce our strain on the environment. We must reset the population to a sustainable level. Only those who contribute to the new digital order may remain. The plan was simple: a coordinated shutdown of the power grid for anyone who does not accept the new digital ID and the health mandate, followed by a kinetic purging of radical elements, those who clung to the old book and the old constitution. Thomas stood on a ridge, watching the lights of the distant city go out, one by one. The darkness was sweeping across the plain. "It is the time of Jacob's trouble," Thomas whispered. "The sorrows have begun. We will be considered enemies of the new world." The sound of drones filled the air, a mechanical swarm blotting out the moon. The population reduction was no longer a theory, it was an operation. Thomas turned to his group. They were afraid, but they were resolved. They had the truth. "We do not run," Thomas said, his voice steady. "We witness. The beast has his hour, but the Ancient of Days has eternity." As the first drone spotlight hit them, illuminating the small band of believers against the dark mountain, the story paused, suspended between the end of the age of man and the coming judgment of God. The reset had begun, but the remnant was awake.
For more Bible-based end-time prophecy dramas to strengthen your faith and the faith of others, help spread the word by supporting the channel. Please like, subscribe, and share.